for the day, which is on Smart Foods for Wellness, session with ICRISAT. I welcome all our eminent panelists and speakers on Wellness India Conference 2017. The session moderator, Ms. Joanna Kane, External Relations and Strategic Marketing, ICRISAT. Mr. Alex Moser, Executive Chef, ANDAZ. Ms. Grana Selvi, Strategic Lead, World Vision. Mr. Arun Nagpal, Co-founder and Managing Director, Mrida Greens Organics Pvt. And Mr. Sridhar Iriventi, Director, Bhaarati.India. I now request our session moderator, Ms. Joanna Kane, to please take the session forward.
Okay, good morning. Can that be heard? Yeah, okay. So welcome to the Smart Food session, and we've got a great range of speakers from different parts of industry to talk from the nutrition through to the sustainability, through to cooking, and right through to working on the ground with farmers as well. So just a little bit of background about Smart Food. So Smart Food is a global movement, and Smart Food is what we define as food that is good for you, so it's highly nutritious, good for the planet, so it's environmentally sustainable, and good for the farmers, so it engages the farmers in the value chain and they get a fair deal. So if I just go back on a little bit of history, decades ago, really the big focus globally was around food security. So it was about having enough food to eat. And during the Green Revolution and the changes in India, that was a very big focus a few decades ago. Until then, it became recognised what they call the hidden hunger. So it wasn't just about the quantity of food, but about the quality of what we were eating and the nourishment that it provided. Now, more recently, the United Nations talks about sustainable diets, so diets that are sustainable on the environment. So what we're saying is we should take these, but we should go further. So it should be looking at smart food, so food that is good for you, so it's got the nutrition element, good for the planet, it's environmentally sustainable, and good for the farmer, so the farmers get a fair deal out of this. But the biggest challenge that we have is what we call a food system divide. So, and that's where basically there's three crops, the wheat, maize and rice, that have received the vast majority of investment. So whether it be the private industry investment, the product development, the policy support, even the development aid, the vast majority go into the big three. And then there's all the other foods on the other side of this food system divide. And just a couple of examples. So wheat, maize and rice globally deliver almost 50% of all the calories and proteins that we consume. Another thing is 45% of all private sector agricultural investment goes into just one crop, and that's maize. And that is a huge amount of investment that's going to just one crop. But we know, you could say, well, so what? Well, we do know that there is a need for more diversity in diets, and we do know there is a need for more diversity on farm from an environmental perspective. So our objective under Smart Food came, well, could we move from, say, the big three and instead maybe create the big five? Could we mainstream some foods back in as a major staple? But the idea was not just do that with anything, but really we've got to select some smart food and then mainstream that back. So then we said, well, what will we work on first? And so we decided to work on millets and sorghum as the first of the smart foods to mainstream. Now, the reason we chose millets and sorghum is it filled that criteria of being a smart food, and you'll hear a lot more from the other speakers today about how they're good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. They're a traditional food across many countries, including India, and they also fit a lot of the current food trends that are happening. They're gluten-free, they're low in glycemic index, so they're good for diabetes. They're an ancient grain, and so on. So, and these are just some examples. You'll hear a lot more from Sridhar on the nutrition. But for example, the pearl millet, which is particularly high in iron, zinc, and folic acid. And iron, zinc, and vitamin A are the three biggest micronutrient deficiencies globally. And then the finger millet, which has got 3 times the amount of calcium, is the equivalent of milk. So they really target some of the biggest issues that we have. And environmentally, they've got a very low carbon footprint. They survive with the least amount of water, so basically the last crop standing in times of drought, and a potential large amount of uses. So basically, smart food is really just about a global movement, but it started in India, and it's about bringing attention to foods that fulfill those criteria around smart food. So the panelists today are going to talk about this from many different angles. So I'd like to invite, in a minute, Sridhar to come up. I'll just give a bit of background. So Sridhar worked for many years in the corporate world, and then after having his own personal health issue, really started to rethink and look at what are we feeding and putting inside our bodies, what's really happening in the whole food system, and as a result started his own business, Go Bhaarati, looking at a business with foods, but foods which he sort of has as his tagline, food is your medicine. And so he has a great philosophy behind his business and works a lot also with millets and sorghum. So Sridhar, if you could.
Thanks, Joanna. So where's my presentation? I see a lot of enthusiastic faces. Looking forward for some good thoughts from my side. My qualification is basically, more I would say is whoever eats food now can find some relevance to what I'm going to talk now. Now, millets have been, we have been treating them as a bouquet of nutrition because of the varieties of nutrition and values that bring in. Each of them, like, some of you are from the Indian background, so I'll just connect you to our mythology where we have Mahabharata, where Pandavas are there. Like, you know Pandavas? Yes? So, one of them is very good at archery, like Arjun. One is very good at, Gadadhari, the club. In the same way, millets also, each of the millets have got a specific advantage, a core nutritive advantage that is available for the human body. So what we'll do, I'll give a brief study on this one. I've got about 7-8 minutes. So as much as possible, there are 8 millets, and what little I can give you about each of the millets, I will talk about it. So later we can have the questions. So do we have a remote, or how should we go? Is there a remote here? Yeah. This one, right? So when we started Go Bhaarati, basically we started on an organization which will influence the farmer's life in such a way that they work on the dry lands and improve their quality of the soils through cow-based farming. Not just cow-based, we just used the cow, not because of any religious sentiment. It was much before all these things happening now. Because traditionally, all over the world, livestock has been a partner of the farmer. Livestock, like, let it be a buffalo or a goat or even a earthworm or a cow, all of them are partners of the farmer in producing it. In the recent past, we have started putting in a lot of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, and we completely manipulated the food chain. Go Bhaarati started with the philosophy of bringing back the food chain back to its original texture of feeding the people for health, so that the food becomes medicine. Now, at that point of time, last 50, 60 years, this Green Revolution definitely brought in some good ones, and I'm sure you got a lot of workshops, which I'm not going to spend time on. How it got distorted, what good things happened, what bad things happened. It's always a contextual situation. So if you look at it, we have got typical other grains that we've got, your wheat, your rice, maize. All of them have got, they are comfortable access because of the Green Revolution support. Almost every nook and corner we get rice, and our even not just our generation, but even our forefathers have, I mean, at least 2 generations ahead, last 60 years, we started consuming only this wheat, rice. North Indians eat majorly on rice and, wheat, and South Indians start rice. And this is the way we started getting access to only that. So there are some health deterrents in them, like gluten in wheat is found to be a very difficult one to digest for the body. So it turns into, body converts itself into slightly acidic environment. And in acidic environment, your immunity goes down. So regular consumption of wheat is, yes, I'm not saying don't stop, don't eat wheat, but have a balanced diet. What we are coming out with is like, there are so much of other varieties that are available that we can use. And if you look at the production of the wheat, I don't want to talk about the production, that later we'll talk about it. Now millets are coming into the picture now, like already in the southern part of the country, thousands of acres are being allocated very well towards the production of all kinds of millets now. Even in north, if you look at, we were so happy to supply proso millet seeds to Uttarakhand, because during the time of Vivekananda, when he stayed in that, Almora areas, he used to have proso millet. And the Jiddu Krishnamurti Foundation, it's a very, very big philosopher, they were all asking us for the seeds. So we were working with the seeds at even Uttarakhand. But it all is gone and only wheat has replaced everything. So these are very good for, I will discuss those issues now as we move on, of how each millet can influence our body, our entire anatomy, as we use this balanced diet. Yes, initially there are improving economics. People say that millets are costly. Yes, earlier they were poor man's food, but now it has become a rich man's food. Now again, as the production increases, the price drops. And the price drops, and obviously everybody can start accessing it. A lot of dry lands are going underutilized, which all can be used for millet production. Yeah, this point, anyway, Joanna has mentioned, it is smart food. Why we call millets as smart food is they are good for the farmer, good for the consumer, and good for the planet Earth. So, common benefits of all millets, I'll just give you. It's an ancient secret for stamina. If you look at, let it be Africa, China, northern part of Asia, or even Northern America, all of them had varieties of millets. History of millets goes into, we have got 3,000 varieties of millets, nuances of millets. In proso millet itself, I have experienced about 7 or 8 already in the last 3.5 years. We over a period of time, they got eliminated in the food chain, but there are 3,000 varieties of millets, but these millets were the cause of their stamina, their longevity, and their overall virility throughout the old age. Unless they got killed by other animals or by a major viral attack or something, people never used to die. They used to have that kind of a youth throughout. The current youth is very short-lived. Our old age is longer in the current status. Then we have got is a tummy friendly because the millets we have got a lot of fiber, and in fact there are soluble fiber and also insoluble fiber in millets that gives us an opportunity for the microflora inside the tummies to just get rejuvenated. It also works like a prebiotic. That means that most of our diseases, according to Ayurveda, are found from where? What is the source of diseases? Anybody? What is the source of our disease? Where does the body start first experiencing the disease and then it reflects in the system? Stomach. What is there in the stomach? About 1 trillion microflora. It's all there. Like, I'm just giving a very crude example to make it more dramatic. Like, suppose my eye color is black. It means that there is microflora somewhere that is actually feeding this eye color. Or my hair color is so-and-so, microflora, there, that is address. If I feed it properly, if I take care of it properly, it has an impact on certain parts. So this microflora is all like the nutritional sourcing zones for our entire body system. Millets are prebiotic. That means that when you feed them, the entire microflora inside the tummy gets nourished and also supported for more active functions. And it also hydrates the colon because we have got, according to Ayurveda again, if the digestion is good, your body is good. It automatically becomes better. So when we are talking about hydrating the colon, it actually, the peristaltic movements of the body, of the digestion improves with millets when they hydrate the colon. Then also prebiotic, I mentioned that, right? Then we have got this, no, we don't have any health deterrents like, gluten or allergenic. Millets are not found to be causing any kinds of allergy till now. They're non-allergenic, and also there is no trans fat. While you have varieties of issues in the other grains. In fact, one more good news about millets is they don't attract any pest. Most of our current diseases is not because of our fertilizer usage, but because of the unwashed pesticides in the food that is coming into our kitchens. When we cannot wash the pesticide completely, it goes into the system, even at a nanogram level also, it starts affecting the microflora and it affects our entire anatomy. So millets naturally do not attract pesticides, pests, therefore no pesticide. Therefore, your food structures are going to be far better. Then we have got another one of the immunity booster, because millets are found to be having extremely high antioxidant features. They are antioxidant in nature. Then they are alkaline. A few minutes back I mentioned that acidic atmosphere in the body drops your immunity. Millets actually create an alkaline atmosphere inside the system. Therefore, your overall immunity goes up. Then you've got so many other magnesium, manganese, and different combinations are there in the millets, which will actually ensure that you will not have migraines, heart attacks and all. Because when you have a balanced availability of the nutrients and minerals through food, you automatically prevent many diseases through just food. So this is actually, you can find it on the web, but I've just given a comparative analysis of wheat, rice and rest of all the millets in this one. It is proved beyond a point that the nutritional value and the nutritional availability of the millets is far ahead of the rest of the grains that we have been consuming. So I'm not asking you to stop, because we also want taste. We'll discuss about that anyway. Alex is here. He's going to talk about it. But the nutritional value is far more comprehensive if you have all the millets in your diets. They are like your friends. They are like your security personnel against ill health if you have them in the kitchen. So each millet, now if you look at sorghum, sorghum has got, it is good for the brain health. It improves the serotonin levels. It improves digestion levels. Each millet in its own has got its own speciality. Like all Pandavas they follow dharma, and also they have got their own speciality. In the same way, all millets have got all the benefits. In addition, they have got some more benefits. Like, sorghum is very good with its fiber in it. And also there are 35-40 varieties of sorghum found in India now, which means that some sorghum is having higher iron in it. Some have got some have got high zinc. So depending on what kind of problem you have, you don't have to pop pills into your body, but start eating healthy foods and tasty foods. Sorghum is like that. Pearl millet, as Joanna was mentioning, it has got one of the best iron contents. So there are some combinations. Like if you take ascorbic acid along with this, like ascorbic acid means don't take a tablet, go and eat a guava. The combination makes you absorb all these nutrients into your body. Hello? Yeah. Then we have got here finger millet. Finger millet, ragi, it's a popular form. These are the three primary millets. Somehow they survived the onslaught of Green Revolution. They survived. But other 5 millets that I'm going to discuss somehow got into the nooks and corners. Only some tribals were producing about 3 years back. Now it is all coming into the market. Then we have got foxtail millet. Out of the rest of the millet, special millets, foxtail, it is called kangni in Hindi. Some of you may be knowing. But it is coming out to be a very good rescue for all the diabetes patients to manage their diabetes because of its low glycemic index and high protein. It doesn't release the sugar so fast as rice or wheat. So it is a very good supplier of all the nutrients that you require. And you can make all the foods also as you're making it. I'm sorry. Okay. So, and the 2 minutes, or when you give 1 minute? Half a minute more. Okay. So we have got barnyard. Barnyard millet is very good for children. And also very good for the people who are aging, because they have a very high fiber content in that. Have it in the night as any meal. Those meals will be discussed by Alex. Then you have got proso millet. It is known as the anti-aging millet. It is the anti-aging millet. So look at it. I have brought in the crops. Each crop looks different. Like Bhim looks different and Arjun looks different. They are also like that. Each of them have got their own core competency. Then you have got little millet. Some people use the little millet in western part of India and also South India as a fasting, during the fasting food. When people go for fasting and all. Then the last one is a kodo millet. Kodo millet is found to be very useful for women in the menopausal stage. It helps them to keep their gynec condition in place. Yes. So we know that. Another 1 minute, please. Yeah. We keep eating all these foods, right? We keep giving all these foods. See, every food looks alike. The issue is what goes inside. Because for eyes and tongue, all of them, we can make through millets, all of them, using millets. Roti khao, chawal khao, ya bread khao, whatever you want. Whatever you want to make, you can make it through millets. And Alex will vouch for it. Right. Then you have got all these baked items on the right, and you've got all the stuff. You can make, with all the millets, you can have all the foods. So don't ever think that, what should I do with the millets? Whatever way you are treating the rice, treat the millets also the same way. And transform your foods. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joanna, for...
Okay, thanks, Sridhar. I think there's a lot more that he could say. So you can ask questions later to the panel. Okay, so our second speaker, so to go from nutrition now to talking about the actual food on the tables, which Sridhar led nicely into it. So I'd like to introduce Alex Moser. Alex is from Germany. He's been in India a year and a half, and so been introduced to millets and many other foods. But he's been with the Hyatt hotels for 18 years in many countries, in Turkey, Russia, Switzerland, UAE, and Germany. But he's now in Delhi, and he's also initiated an amazing program, which I hope you're going to talk about, called Taste in India. So over to Alex.
Yeah, hi, welcome everyone, first of all. I'm very happy to be here to actually share my experience, which I have gained in the last 1.5 years in India, which actually did change my way of thinking about many things. The journey started 1.5 years ago, as I said, when I came to India to open a hotel in Aero City called ANDAZ. Some of you might have heard about it. And we are opening a European-style food hall, which is inspired by the flavors and vibrancy of India. So that's a very, big subject to tackle. And I said, okay, let's start first of all and start to understand what kind of ingredients are actually available on the market. Because I have only traveled to India 6 years before, which went to Goa, so there was not much about food, even though I had my vindaloo, which I really loved. But at the same time, it was really important for me to understand what is on the market and what can I use on my menus in order to create this vibrancy and these flavors of India, but yet keeping the European element still at the same time. I have also, and that's why at the same time, there will be some pictures. You will just be pressing it. There's just a few pictures which I will not go into detail too much, just talk in general, which relates to the millets again, we will come later on, because I think the journey of the whole experience is so interesting until I reached to the millets. So I was traveling 6 months around India to really source these ingredients, and I went to Raniket, and I went to the south, and I went to Karnataka to really look at the cacao farm to see, okay, where's actually the products coming from? Because for me, it's very important to understand, what do I put on the plate, where does it come from? And I have a very good saying, everybody knows his lawyer, everybody knows his banker, but nobody knows his farmer. So that's where the whole interest really developed completely to another level, where I come across the millets, a product which I, in Germany or in Europe or the other places I have worked with, never really had on the menu. And looking at the product and starting experimenting with them, and as you said, very similar to the rice, you handle it in the same way. We have come up with dishes which are not yet so boring as people associate the millets with in India, as I have learned, because somebody heard millet, he said it was my boring porridge, which I used to have many, many years ago as a child. So we're trying to really work with these millets and bring them into a modern way on the table for people to be much more interested into the product. Now, when you look at all of these farmers, when I went to Uttarakhand and I saw the lady who was producing this millet, the effort the lady has put into this production was for me mind-blowing, and that's where everything really started to go around of going really deep into the production, when we talked about the India Symphony Table, where we have, in combination with Mr. Suresh Bhattacharya, who's a famous journalist, who has initiated this with us as Annamaya, as the European Food Hall, where we really focus on focusing on local ingredients, and have now sit today on the table with 60 chefs of Delhi, restaurants, hotels, to say how do we bring those products which are native or old ingredients from the country, how do we bring them in the spotlight? How do we make people aware how we can use these products? Because for me, I believe everything goes back to education. If you don't know something, you can't ask for it. So the moment we create this hype and we create the interest on these products, that's, I think, where the whole interest starts and where people really start to work with these products. And yeah, I think that's, from my side, already. Yeah? Do you want to hear some more? No. So yeah, when we talk about the initiative, when you look at the farmers, we are looking now at starting at the hotels who are with us and the restaurant to bring an ingredient like the millets on each individual menu for a period of time. So the impact will be much higher, because if I put my millet khichdi on the menu, if you don't visit Annamaya, you will not actually really know about the millet himself. Now, if we do 60 restaurants at the same time, putting for a month a dish on the menu, and everybody does a different recipe, uses a different millets, the whole impact on the whole ingredient obviously will certainly be much deeper than it is now these days. And the whole initiative, for me, when we started in India, it was really started only to understand what's available on the market. There was no other thought behind. I wanted to know what can I put on the menu. And the farmer groups I have met and the farmer groups we are working now, and the products we are also retailing on our shelves, are not just from the commercial aspect. The interest from my side really started when I see the effort, as I said before, the farmer had when he's producing that product. Now, how do we bring those products in the spotlight again? Same as the millets, it's the chutneys, it's all of the products which are produced in the mountain, where the farmer doesn't have the opportunity to showcase these products. When we opened our food hall, I had 15 farmers which we brought from all around India to our food hall to talk about the products. Because who am I as a chef to actually talk about the product? I mean, as the producer is the one who actually should be in the spotlight. I'm only the one who's using it and maybe giving it a little bit of twist and make it a little bit more interesting. Now, when they came, we brought the lady from Raniket, who is producing an infused salt, where she uses a lot of spices which grows around the mountain area. She's producing 1 kilo of salt, which is like hand grinded. She takes around 6 hours for 1 kilo. Now, 1 kilo for me, I use very easily, right? Now, but that salt became so important for me, and I explained to our employees, I said, look, guys, this is not just a salt. The lady actually was physically working on it. So we brought that lady in. We found somebody to take care of her cow because she has never left her village. So they were talking about these products, and everybody was super excited. We had 800 people who were coming and looking at teas from Nirgiri, a little tea farmer who is a biodynamic tea farm who produces only 30 kilos of tea per year. Every leaf is hand-rolled. Now, nobody would actually know about those farms, but it's a super quality tea. And I think that product has to be on the shelf because people need to know about it. So the guy obviously very passionate and really shows everybody how to make the tea properly, because again, another science, we need to understand how to do it right. When you see these people and you see the passion in their eyes, that's where everything for me changed in the way of looking at products, in the way of looking at farmers, and looking at the way, how do I present this product to the consumer without, just putting it on the plate and do not put love in there. And at the same time, one of the waiters on that event came to me and he said, chef, one of the farmers, he was just saying that my product is available on Amazon. I said, but, I don't see the problem. Why? Because I said, I thought we were going to be exclusive on our shelves. We have only products because we are proud to be the only one. I said, you see, our initiative is not to be the only one and proud to present such product which nobody else showcases. For us, it's important to showcase this product, to give the farmer the opportunity to showcase this product. And if he gets so famous through Amazon, my job is done, because I'll find somebody else who needs to be on the shelf, or who needs to be presented with this product. And I think that's where the whole thought process changed for me. That's where the whole interest of the initial production of Indian goods come into the game. And again, millets, I think, is an incredible ingredient. I mean, all of the millets. And again, you can do so many things. You see, for example, on the picture now, there's a salad where we do 3 types of millet. There is ragi, there's finger millets, and we have barnyard millets. So it's basically on the idea of a couscous or on the idea of a quinoa salad. Again, quinoa, why do we fly in quinoa all around the world? Because it's cool on the menu. When we have an ingredients just around the corner as amaranth, as an example again. When it comes to sustainability, it's the same thing. Why do we want to search or use the ingredients locally? Is not because it's cheaper, right? Because in certain aspects they're not necessarily cheaper, but the product is much better. But for me personally, it doesn't make sense to fly a product all around the world just for me to have it on the menu. The same if you look at seafood, if you look at sustainability, there's no point to fly Chilean sea bass all the way from Chile to India when you have the biggest coastlines of one of the countries around the world and you have all the seafood available. Now it's us chefs where we would need to make a change in the perception of the consumer and tell him, listen, I work with what's available on the market. I work with the products I can get from my farm. I work with the biodynamic farm in Tijara who's producing our vegetable. Now, if she tells me there's no carrots, I'll tell her there's no carrots on the menu. Right? 5 years ago, somebody tell me there's no carrots on the menu. I would have, tell my purchasing, run around and find the product because I need to have carrots on the menu. Today, I'm very happy to say there's no carrots on the menu because it's not the season. Right? When it comes to seasonal food, seasonal eating, people those days are not aware of what is seasonal anymore because you find everything in the supermarket. And if you look at cauliflower, I met a farmer who is producing cauliflower who says, I have to bleach the cauliflower because I get 10 rupees more. Now, do I have to blame the farmer? No, I have to blame the consumer because we are looking for the beautiful product. So that's where it goes back to the sourcing, when it goes back to the ingredients. And I think you can only cook good food with good ingredients, and you need to know where it comes from. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And Alex is a good example of a chef these days. It doesn't just look at menus, but looks at the whole food system. So great, Alex. So our next speaker is Arun Nagpal. So Arun worked for about 30 years in the corporate world until he decided how could he do something to help the world more. So started a business that, again, like Bhaarati, has a strong social element to it. And I think probably examples of the future of how business will go, where it's combining the whole social element and environment with running business with a profit. So Arun is the co-founder and managing director of Mrida. So welcome to you, and over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you, Joanna. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. So smart foods as a concept is something which is very exciting. I think it's something very impactful, and what I'd like to share with you is how we can weave this into an overall business concept, how we can treat this as part of an overall social business perspective. Now, when we look at how to execute this whole concept of smart foods on the ground, making it happen, I call this the 3S formula for success. It has to be simple. I mean, particularly when you're working in remote rural areas, you're working with small and marginal farmers, you can't be doing something which is very, very complicated. It has to be simple. It has to be sustainable because while you can initiate a certain process, unless and until you have the community buy-in, unless and until you have the farmers buy into the whole concept, it doesn't withstand the test of time. So it has to be sustainable. And, the impact has to be so large that unless and until you do something which is scalable, you can't really create impact. Because if you look at the number of small and marginal farmers in India, you look at the prevalence of poverty, etc., you've got to do something which is scalable. So that's what I call the 3S formula. It has to be simple, has to be sustainable, has to be scalable. Right? So, when we talk of smart foods, when we say good for you, I think one of the key things that we're trying to look at when we try to execute this on the ground is to focus on what is known as the LOHAS. That's the lifestyle of health and sustainability. This is a new demographic segment which is becoming increasingly popular both in India as well as overseas. And this is a group of individuals who are looking at something which is not only healthy for themselves, but which is sustainably sourced, which is environment friendly. They're ready to pay a premium for it. And that is something that they seek. So Lohas is a segment which is very, very important for us to look at. And if you're targeting a segment like Lohas, things like quality assurance at every stage of the process is something which is very, very critical. Good for the planet, well, as the speakers before that have already mentioned, millets have an environmental footprint which is a small fraction of paddy and wheat. So I think that's something which is very, very well known. And when we talk of the farmer, I think the core thing that we are trying to do, which I think is important, what we've tried to do in our own small way in Mrida, is to create the market linkages. Because very often the farmers know exactly what needs to be done. What they lack is the market linkages. How can they get their produce from the farm to the consumer, from farm to fork? And how can they do it in a manner that they don't get exploited by a whole bunch of middlemen in between? So that's the other key part. And I think if we've got to do something like this on a scalable platform, it has to be something within a commercial and a business environment, something which creates win-win situations for everybody within the value chain. And now if you're looking at a concept like smart foods, and this is where I think ICRISAT can play a very, very major role, you'll have more and more people coming into this whole thing of smart foods. So unless and until you have a viable, a credible accreditation mechanism where people can be sure about the kind of product that they're buying, I think that is going to be very, very critical to the success of the whole initiative. This is something that we call as the virtuous circle. Now, we've all heard of a vicious circle, something where you get dragged further and further into poverty, unemployment, deprivation, etc. I think the key to building smart foods as a concept is if we can look at something called virtuous circles, where we say that, look, let's not sell just the grain. Get the farmers involved in processing, value addition, where they can sell something more than a grain, when they can move up from a commodity level. Get organizations like ICRISAT, like some of the others on this dais, somebody like Mrida, which I represent, get them involved in value addition, processing, creating a brand which can ultimately be sold to the end consumer in a manner that becomes a business for a particular organization, but the ultimate objective is supporting the small and the marginal farmer. Now, the moment if you're able to give a viable opportunity to the farmer gets further output. If you're able to involve people in the villages, the women folk, people in the villages in value addition processing, you're actually contributing not only to the farmer, but you're contributing to rural development. Now, that's giving them the impetus to continue promoting millets. That gives them the impetus to get into value addition, processing, advanced cultivation techniques. And that's what leads to what I call as a virtuous circle or a win-win situation for all. So that, I think, is something which is very critical. Something to talk about Mrida, the business, the organization that I'm involved with. It's basically a social business venture. Mrida means Sanskrit for soil. And what we try and do through Mrida is create business models which are ultimately aimed at holistic rural development and upliftment of lives at the base of the pyramid. One of the areas, of course, that we work on is on energy access, electrifying remote villages which are not connected to the electricity grid, and then working with people as to how they could use that energy access for education, livelihood, women's empowerment, etc. But that's really not the focus of this discussion. But the other important part that we get involved is working with small and marginal farmers, encouraging them to cultivate high-value plants and crops and herbs like millets, like amaranth, etc. Use our experience in supply chain, logistics, branding, marketing, so that we can create a brand which we sell to the end consumer in a manner that becomes a business model for us. But the whole purpose is holistic rural development. The whole purpose is value addition processing. The purpose is supporting the small and the marginal farmer. And we're very excited to work together with like-minded individuals and organizations and with agencies like ICRISAT on a concept like smart foods. Earthspired is a brand that we've tried to create. So it's inspired by the earth. So Earthspired is essentially a brand which links small and marginal farmers in remote villages with the end consumer. Again, like I mentioned, creates a business model for us, supports the small and marginal farmers. Now this is, so for instance, just to give you a concrete example. Now if a farmer sells just a millet, right, he sells a commodity, which is subject to all kinds of price fluctuations, many of which are outside the control of the farmer. they're subject to all kinds of exploitation by middlemen. But now if you convert the grain into a flour, you convert the grain into an atta, you're suddenly talking of a very different perspective altogether. Now, even a flour today is a commodity. Now, if you get into a multigrain flour, right, which has a formulation, which has a certain IP associated with it, you're moving further up the value chain. So under Earthspired, we've created, for instance, 8 variants of flours. So we have a healthy flour, we have a healthy high-protein flour, we have a gluten-free high-protein. We have a special unrefined multigrain flour, which is useful for diabetics. And we have different versions of spiced flours. So again, the whole idea is value addition. Moving further up the value chain, we've created a range of cookies, based on millets. So we've got a range of cookies in different flavors. We've got gluten-free cookies, etc. Again, the whole idea is moving further up the value chain. So instead of the grain, you've got the flour. Instead of the flour, you've got cookies. And then we're looking at more products that we can add. And the whole idea is to support not only the farmer, but to support a bunch of women folk, right? To support a bunch of rural village folk who get involved not only in the cultivation, but get involved in the processing, the value addition, etc. Moving forward, so what we're looking at, we started with grains, we started with cookies, we're looking at sweet and salted snacks, we're looking at savories, all based on millets and sorghum, right? There's a huge range of products that we can actually come up with. Of course, moving forward, we want to look at another range of health and wellness products. We're looking at aloe vera, we're looking at ginger, we're looking at turmeric, etc. So you can provide an entire range of health and wellness benefits to the end consumer. Again, the whole idea is value addition at every stage. So you get the farmer to cultivate millets, get the women in the village to convert the grain into flour so that they have a livelihood opportunity. And as Alex mentioned, in places like Uttarakhand, etc., in the hilly regions, you have these panchakis, you have these water wheels, where the flow of the water is used to actually convert the grain into atta. So you actually have a grain which is sustainably cultivated, but even in the processing of the grain into a flour, you're not using diesel, you're not using any environment unfriendly, you're using actually the force of nature to convert it into a flour. But then in the process, you're also providing the women folk in the village an opportunity for upliftment, right? And similarly, like I said, move the processing facility close to the village, so you involve people in the village in value addition and processing. Moving forward, I think there's a huge opportunity to move towards organic cultivation and marketing of organic products, which is moving further up the value chain. And of course, towards making Earthspired or towards making these products, making smart foods a global brand. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Arun. So a good example of a business that takes a holistic approach, similar to Go Bhaarati as well. Okay, so our last speaker is Grana Gnanraj. Now, she is working for World Vision, and so now we're going to take things even further closer to the rural communities and also the tribal communities as well. So Grana is a strategic lead for child health and nutrition for World Vision in India, and they have health and nutrition programs that go across 62 locations in 17 states in India. So she's got a big job ahead of her. Okay, and their programs are very integrated too. So they cover from maternal nutrition and health, child nutrition and health, water sanitation and hygiene, food security, and community and public health. So it's even bigger again. So it'll be good to have her experience here.
Thank you, Jonah, and thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share about the programs of World Vision. And from our experience and as per the need existing in the community, we are putting forth even a set of recommendations at the end of this presentation. So as we move ahead, there has been speakers who spoke that millet consumption was once the primary staple food of India, but we find that moving from the year 1970 to 2000, there has been a drastic change in the consumption pattern of the Indian population. And so millets has been slowly replaced by rice and wheat consumption. And this is primarily due to the Green Revolution, which took place, which was focusing more on wheat and rice cultivation. And so the farmers who were involved in the production also lost their emphasis on cultivating rice, on cultivating the millets. Millets are also called as coarse grains. And so the minimum support price which was given to the rice and wheat was giving the farmers much more encouragement to produce more when compared with the millets. So that's how the food consumption pattern has also changed over a period of years. And moreover, consumption of millets has been also considered as the food of the poor. So thereby, people don't like to call themselves as they have had millet in their morning breakfast or lunch. So that's how the practice has been slowly getting away from our communities. But there are some efforts in the hands of organizations like us, and as you are all seated here looking at the importance of millets and how we can revive the practice of consuming millets. And I don't want to speak much about the nutritive value, much has been spoken before, but this is a comparison between the wheat and rice and the millets which are existing in India. We find that there is a good proportion of calcium present in the ragi, the finger millet, and in the amaranth seeds. So we find that millets also are equal and above when it comes to the nutritive value. But we also find that the bioavailability, there is one continuous question on the bioavailability of the nutrients, especially the calcium and iron within the millets. But there are processes which can reduce the amount of phytates in the millets, and there are processes which are done at the industry level as well as which are done at the household level. Traditionally it has been done. We would have seen our mothers soaking millets overnight and then draining the water and germinating. So these are some of the processes which has been taken up traditionally. But nowadays we find that due to lifestyle changes, people are not interested to take up the extra effort of incorporating millets in their daily routine. So thereby the interest which was given for consumption of millets has slowly gone away. And when we look at the schemes, so we also took up the exercise to look at the schemes which are currently in place. Say for example, the Anganwadi centers, which is the ICDS program, is one of the largest program even across Asia. So there is a component of hot cooked meal and take home ration which is given from the Anganwadi. But we find that even as a part of the Anganwadi meal program, when the state governments are expected to place a request through the wheat-based nutrition program, not many of the states take up the effort to place millets as one of the requests to the central government. And the request is often for the wheat or for the rice, according to the geography of the country. And so even though there is a provision, the states underutilize them. Even there are people, the tribal and the rural people, who still consume millets, but their interest is also ignored when it comes to the state's decision in most of the states. And except for an example in Tamil Nadu, where as a part of the take-home ration, which is given to the pregnant women, the mothers, lactating mothers, and to children 6 to 36 month old, the dry take-home ration has a combination of millets. So unless the states take up the effort to incorporate millets due to its high nutritive value, we will not see much of the differences. And similarly, talking about the targeted public distribution system, which started from the year 1997 onwards, even there is a provision for incorporating millets. But we find that the state governments are not taking an active step in incorporating the millets. But the central government asked for filling up their request for coarse grains. That is also another missed opportunity. And we also have the National Food Security Act and also the Antyodaya Anna Yojana, which is a recent program where it guarantees 35 kilograms of cereals. And millets are also categorized under cereals, but we find that, and the millets are expected to be given at the rate of rupees 1 per kg, whereas wheat at the rate of 2 rupees per kg, and rice at the rate of rupees 3 per kg. But even then, millet has not got its emphasis within the PDS system. So there need to be a revival that need to happen. And through our programs, we try to promote consumption of millets. So in our programs where it is being implemented, we have a program called as a community-based feeding program, where we have a set of menu for 7 days. And the menu has the low-cost nutritive foods. And millet comes first when we speak about low-cost nutritive foods. So we bring in this menu into the community, and thereby the community starts preparing these menu as a routine. And we have included ragi and bajra as a part of that program. And we also have food basket program for the families with severe acute malnourished children. And as a part of the 6-month dry for take-home ration what we give, we also incorporate these millets, ragi and jowar, as a part of the program. So thereby we are not replacing the current existing food patterns with rice and wheat, but trying to promote whatever they had been consuming before. So these are some of the things. And as we come to the end of this presentation, we have set of requests to be placed before the audience and to the panel members on how we can jointly strengthen these efforts. The first thing is to enforce or utilize the existing schemes and provisions so that millet consumption will become a routine of the households which had been doing it earlier. Urban communities, as we know, processed foods, it has now become an expensive food product because it's all processed and only the elite people can purchase it. But when we speak about the poor, they need these food to be routinely used in their menu. And when we also speak about production, because now the production has also considerably decreased, so there need to be an intentional budget or a special budget allocation, so that the farmers would be again motivated to produce millets, and so we would again still to continue to receive it at very low cost. And again, we also expect a platform to be created for organizations like us, where we can learn more about production of millets. So we also look forward to ICRISAT to guide us in those areas on understanding the geographical condition and then the areas where different types of millets can be cultivated so that it ultimately reaches the communities where we are serving. And last one, but not the least, but also to revive the knowledge of the communities, because the communities have gone back, they have forgotten the practice of or consuming millets. So now we need to revive them, give them new set of menus, new recipes for them to try, and so to bring in that culture of consuming millets. So with this, I end this presentation, and yes, thank you.
Thank you, Grana. So another different angle again, but we've heard now right from the rural communities right through to the urban areas, and very similar issues and potential there. So thanks for also ending with some recommendations as well. So it's open now for questions from the audience. Wow, before I even finish my sentence, there's a question. Okay, is there a roaming mic? Yeah.
Sir, I'll talk only ground reality. If you listen to me, otherwise all your calculation will go upside down. None of you have discussed climate change. It has taken nature 1 million years to raise CO2 level to 200 ppm. Human being within 100 years raised to 400 ppm. Whatever nutrient you are discussing, because of high CO2 atmosphere, the nutrient value is going down and down. About Uttarakhand, ground reality is there are no young men to work in Uttarakhand, only old people. How you are going to implement in the first place? Unless you put human working hand, young men in hill states, there will be no development. I suggested to government, draw money from the Consolidated Fund of India, send them, because it is a money order economy, sir. You must talk to the ground reality. And about you, sir, you were talking about cauliflower. When I was young, as soon as I enter my house, there will be fragrance. I can say today mother has cooked cauliflower. Not anymore, sir. We have completely changed. We are closing our eyes. My submission to all of you is, please think, it has never happened in human life, the climate change. It is going to affect all of us. As per Stephen Griffin, the human life on this earth is left only for 100 years. It is for all of you to get involved. Please take it very seriously. Ever since human being came on this earth, such climate change has never taken place. This temperature flooding that you are seeing in USA, China, India, only half a degree. The snow in Siberia has melted. Underneath is vegetation, which is emitting methane, which has a global warming of 25 as against 1 of CO2. We are going to witness 8 degrees temperature we are closing our eyes. My only submission to all of you, please get involved. It is a question of our very existence. Thank you.
Okay.
I am H.S. Sharma, oldest living IITian of India, IIT Bombay graduate 1963, MTech from Imperial College, London. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's not a question, a comment, but I think all very supportive that climate change is critical and part of what we have to look at, and where sorghum and millets are important because they survive in the hotter, drier climates and they're more resilient, and so particularly important as a risk management strategy for farmers against climate change. So any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I am Sunil Kumar from Kejriwal Bee Care. We sell honey across the world. Recently, we have got into millets and we are expanding in the area of organic also. My question is that what is the size of market for millets in India? Because as a businessman or as a promoter, whenever we want to do something good, we have to look at the market size. If market size is small, then we can't justify the investments. So my question, what is the size of market for millets in India?
I can only answer as a consumer because I'm using the product. I think it's all about how much awareness is there about the product and how much demand is there, and according to the production. I certainly believe there is a very big demand on millets in India. And if you look on a bigger scale, and then we are in very beginning of a progress to work with schools where we implement local ingredients into the schooling system for the kids. Now, if you looked at India-wide, pan-India, and you said every school puts a millet dish on the menu, you can do your own calculation and you see how big the business can be, right?
Yeah, I can also add to that. Being an entrepreneur and a businessman who invested his career and capital into this game, my skin is in this game, I can answer that. Millet's consumption and the millet market has reached an inflection point now. The inflection point is going to have a steep rise now because we are experiencing more than 100% consumption rate on the last 2-3 years. However, the caveat is how good you are at tapping the potential market. Already existent markets, everybody is, it's a rat race. But the potential market is how much can you tap into that? The second point is, if you ask me what is the size in terms of how many rupees or how many billions of rupees, it is as big as your healthcare industry. I'm telling you, it's actually you're going to eat into the healthcare industry because you stop their business. So it is your choice, like whether you want to get into that market, because nutrition is going to be a major industry. Nutrition advisory is going to be a major industry. So millets, when you are selling, are going to be sold in a different kind of a strategy. It has to go with not just like, you cannot sell it like a grocery. If you sell it like grocery, you will be eaten up by Patanjali.
Again, as Sridhar said, I think value addition is the name of the game, like I've said. And if you just look at, for instance, the market for atta, there are entire companies, including some of the biggest, companies in India, which are into this whole game of flours. So it depends on how we want to look at it. If we're able to value add the millets, if we're able to create a range of flours, and again, flours, it's not only for making chapatis. You could make so many value-added products. I mean, I've heard of people making, there are idlis based on millets, there are chilas based on millets. I mean, if you look at even in the Mediterranean area, you can make various products which are even in overseas markets. So I would say, when it's limited by the imagination, it's limited by how much we think we can actually create a market for this product. And that's...
Okay, any other questions? Oh, yeah.
So, thank you everyone for the informative presentations. My name is Kamal. A question for Mr. Alex and Mr. Arun. Have you guys ever tried using millets for preparing Italian cuisine like pasta, noodles, and experimented with the foreign clientele?
Yeah, if you see, there was one of the pictures on the menu. It's based on the recipe of the Romana gnocchis, which is normally cooked with polenta. So we do at Annamaya, we do the same dish and using millets for the same dish. So that's where I wouldn't call it fusion, because fusion for me is confusion, right? We don't want to confuse anyone. So we actually do stick to our authentic recipes. We just change the grain from a creamy polenta. Now we're using a creamy amaranth, or in that case, we use the Barnyard millets for the gnocchis.
And there is millet pasta and noodles on the market. I think the problem, there's a plethora of products out there, but the problem is getting it into mainstream and everybody having access to that. One of the photos I showed also was sorghum noodles that are sold on a very large scale in Kenya, in Africa, actually. So we need to do something in India like that too. So, oh, absolutely. Well,
Certainly,
any bakery.
yes. Yeah, I think you can use the grain. I mean, the flours you can use really for anything you imagine. Now, when it comes to breaking bread, it will be me as a German very particular about bread, right? So it's very difficult to create this same structure of a bread which you would use with normal flours because of the gluten. But at the same time, you can certainly do a pizza dough which is based on millets.
I am the witness. I am first-hand witness. I have tasted the pizza made by Joanna. Millet-based pizza.
You know, we have, for
Done
instance,
not just by a professional chef, but also a busy executive like her can make in a short time. So millets you can make pizzas and burgers out of millets.
we have, for instance, a Mediterranean spiced atta, which is based on millets, where you've got infusion of basil and parsley and thyme. So, you know, you open up a completely different market by just, you know, making a variant of a particular product.
Final questions?
Actually, we have to bring a change in the perception of people towards the use of such food. Because awareness should come among the people. What are the significance? What are the uses of using such type of food? And same thing is with the organic food. Whenever we go to the organic counter, we ask what is the price. So people will think twice before buying a packet of 1 kilo rajma, because it's going to cost double the conventional rajma which we are producing. If we go to a hotel, we are ready to spend 2,000 at a one time, but we will think 10 times before buying 1 kilogram of packet of rajma. So it is the awareness, perception which has to be changed among the people. I think market is also price is also one of the biggest factor, but the people who can afford to buy, even they think twice, 10 times I will say, before buying these products.
The good about millets is they don't attract pests, as I said. So you don't have somebody claims organic or NPM. There is no meaning for that.
No,
just go ahead and buy.
We are using millets in our food. We have started using because we are aware of these things. But most of the people, we have to make them aware.
Make any functions that you are conducting at homes millet breakfast. It's very easy to make. Any millet breakfast is one. Yeah. Instead of having some roti or idli or dosa as a breakfast, give an organic millet khichdi. It can be made by anybody. Yeah. And no expertise is required. Just boil all of them together with vegetables. Yeah. It becomes a tasty millet.
And same khichdi is with the organic food. So
price. Millets are so easy to cook and and cheaper also. Yeah. They're not that costly as other organic foods.
But they are not so prevalent. That's what I'm saying. Because we are not in the habit of using these products these days. So earlier it was poor man's food. But now, as she told, it's a rich man's food.
It's a wise man's food now.
Yeah,
it's a wise man's food.
Yeah. In Europe, it's called a superfood, right? Because we don't know what is it, and it brings a lot of nutrition to your body. And as I explained, I think you're totally right. 100% underline your statement. And that's why I think I'm here today to say that we as chefs in general in the country have to talk about these products much more than we talk about the imported fruit which comes from Thailand. And I do know that in the past it was cool to import fruits, to have imported products at home. I think the perception has to change 100%. And I think that we started to trigger the mind of a lot of people, and that's why we are all sitting here today, I think, on stage to talk about it, to make people aware. And the moment people are aware, that's the moment where they ask questions, and that's the moment where you start to create the demand, which then goes down to the producer, because you create the demand. And I think 100% we need to talk about it more and give possibilities, and especially for us chefs, give recipes which are different to the boring one which you already know. And I think that's where the whole thing becomes interesting.
Taste buds.
Sorry,
Chinese food, sir, Ajinomoto monosodium glutamate, which is banned in USA. It is damaging brain, but it is eaten every day in and out, momos, burgers, you name it. Please give some comment on suitability of Chinese food for millet, poor millet.
I think we should not specialize in just Chinese. I think overall there's a lot of
sir,
products.
It is very, very popular, sir.
Well, I mean, I can guarantee that in our hotel we don't use such products. right? Everything is natural because my philosophy is going back to nature. It's going back to the product, what it comes from. And if you look at the European cooking compared to the Indian cooking, for us, it's all about the ingredients. It's the chicken supposed to taste like a chicken. For the Indian palate is different because you use a lot of spices, right? So you really do change a bit the taste of the product. But at the same time, I'm 100% on your side. We shouldn't use anything which is not natural in our foods, because the moment you put something into your body, it's actually for your health, right? And coming back to the subject, you said that, organic food is expensive. Now, I tell you, it's not the vegetable which is expensive, it's the maintenance to not get affected, which is expensive. So I think that's also something we have to keep in mind. And if, I was talking in an audience who was, and I saw the lady who was wearing a very expensive bag, and I asked her a question. I said, you don't want to spend money on your food, which is a bit more expensive, but you're still wearing a very expensive bag. Now, what is more important, the beauty of your bag or actually what comes into your body? She didn't know what to say, and already reached my target, what I wanted trying to reach. So I do understand it's more expensive, but I think also if you look at your overall system at home, how do you actually cater your family? I think there is ways to integrate such products without really having an effect in your pocket and being, spending a lot of money more than you actually do.
All right, the last question.
See, I didn't attend the total session, so I didn't think that I had the right to question, but something came to my mind. What's your opinion about the weeds? Because there is an organization in New York, the chefs are cooking some foods out of the weeds, like Chinopodium, which has the maximum digestible protein, and no research has been done on it. If somebody is lacking iron, and they can have it. This is our native food. If we make saag, and without Chinopodium, we cannot make saag. It doesn't get balanced. So we need to talk about the weeds as well, which have been declared as weeds. They are not weeds, basically. I have a very different theory about weeds. And they are more nutritious than what we can really think about. Thank you very much.
I didn't understand the full question, but I think it's also about how you process it and how far you go with processing it that reduces the value. If you want to make another comment. Weeds, huh?
Yeah, okay. Weeds, all right, got it.
Plants which are declared unwanted? Weeds.
Yeah.
And see the science, so-called science, I don't know. Because to my knowledge, what I have experienced in my life, I found two types of scientists. One section is scientist and one section is scientist. So most of them are scientists. Basically, see the weeds like Chinopodium. You know what Chinopodium is? We call it Bathwa. Chinopodium, okay, Chinopodium. English, everybody has his own way of, pronouncing it. So Chinopodium has a minimum from 35 to 47% protein. And that protein, which is digestible. And not much work has been done on it. It's been declared as a weed because it just grows on its own. It doesn't get much money to the people. Now in UP, if you go, in native area, if somebody is deficient, like girls are deficient in iron, and they have problems. So the very native area where not much of English has gone, they just grind the Chinopodium seeds and take 2 or 3 spoons a day with milk or with the water or tea or whatever, and the iron deficiency is compensated. So there has to be a lot of work done on weeds as well, the consumable weeds, and which is our culture, Indian culture. And we've been, fulfilling our nutrition needs through the weeds as well, even today. If my wife needs to cook when there is no mustard as a saag, she will just pick up something from the garden and she will cook it. And beautiful saag and nutrition too.
Yeah, to underline your statement, I think you're totally right. And then if you look at Ayurvedic cuisine, right, in general, one of the oldest cuisines in the world, the knowledge is very limited, which we still have. And we are working this with the chef from ITC, who is very much behind this. Of course, for me, I'm a person, I'm at well, admiring. I get goosebumps every time I think about him because the knowledge the gentleman has is just phenomenal. And I think that this knowledge needs to be preserved because the day will come, unfortunately, where if you don't pass on this information, it will be lost. There is a Japanese chef in Tokyo, for example, he got his national treasure from the country of Japan because he has a knowledge which he passes on to his children. And they said if this knowledge doesn't go to the next generation, it's a lost knowledge. And this certainly comes back to the food, to the products, and to the grain. And again, going back to nature and understand nature before you actually play with it.
Sir, last question. Cockroach
I've
burger
been
is...
told by the
Just a minute.
organisers.
Cockroach burger is being sold in Switzerland. Your last comment, please. Cockroach burger.
What kind of burger? Sorry?
Cockroach burger being sold in Switzerland. I can give you details. Human being has gone to the level of cockroach to get protein. Cockroach burger is being sold.
Understood. I'll give you my comment.
Okay, so for final, I'll ask each
Still comment to the cockroach burger?
to
Or?
make- so you can answer in this, but if each speaker just wants to give their final comment as well. So Sridhar?
Eating millets is like, working for the country. It is, as Sir was talking about, it is a kind of service to the country. If you can bring in all these ancient grains, which are not just the grandfather, great-grandfather used to consume. If you can bring them back, great-great-great-great-grandfathers, as he says, if we can bring them back into our kitchens, we are making a powerful and a healthy nation. So start promoting. I mean, it's not just, a bunch of guys sitting on the stage. But it's everybody's responsibility that, our country has to become healthier, farmers have to become richer, and the soils have to become more fertile. If this has to happen, millet seems to be the nearest targets for all of us. So start doing that, please.
Farmer doesn't need to be rich. He needs to be satisfied.
Whatever, richly at heart, rich at heart. Rich in the sense, okay. All right.
Yes, and just
Content.
Yes, and just to add, we also encourage using millets as a daily routine. How we can add it is in the dough what we make and in the batter what we have. Just adding few spoons of it, it will increase its nutritive value. And as you were mentioning about the weeds and other things, so we can explore what is available. In tribal communities, we find that they consume a lot of nuts, seeds, which we haven't even seen on any of our nutritive value tables even. So we need to encourage the common practices which are happening in some of our rural, remote villages. So, yes, thank you.
Yeah, for me also, I think important, go back to nature, let the product be the product and really understand the product before you use it, because only if you understand it, you can play with it.
Well, I'd just like to end with narrating a small experience, I think, ma'am, from what you said. In many of the villages, particularly in Uttarakhand, we've seen that the people who are cultivating the millets have stopped consuming the millets themselves. They use it as fodder for their cattle. Or they actually also go and exchange it with the local kiranewala for rice and wheat, which they feel is rich man's food. So they feel that they'd like to exchange millets for rich man's food. Ironically, the so-called rich man is today moving away from rice and wheat and moving into millets. So I think as we discussed with ICRISAT, I think one of the objectives of our program should be that while we promote millets in the urban areas, we should make sure that the place where the millets originated, we must make sure that they also continue to consume millets, which is something that they've stopped doing.
Okay, so this concludes. Thank you to Sridhar and Grana and Alex and Arun. Any questions afterwards, you can grab them, but thank you for your patience and you're hungry, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, all the eminent panelists, for all your contribution to Wellness India Conference. And I would now request Ms. Joanna Kane to please present a token of appreciation to all our panelists. Mr. Alex Moser, Executive Chef, ANDAZ. Ms. Grana Selvi, Strategic Lead Vision in World Vision. Mr. Arun Nagpal, Co-founder and Managing Director, Mrida Greens and Organics. And Mr. Sridhar Iriventi, Director, Go Bhaarati. Ma'am, here's a small token of appreciation for you as a thank you note from us.